2024 Wrapped is about wrapping up your old content and repurposing it so that you don't have to record any new stuff for a while. And this is a really good habit to get into long term as well. So you've already done the hard part. You've recorded a bunch of stuff, whether it's webinars, whether it's podcasts, whether it's just some long form videos. You've done it. So save yourself some time, save yourself a bunch of effort, and save yourself some money as well by repurposing the stuff you've already got. So this one webinar that I did a while ago was able to be turned into reels, carousel posts, snippets for YouTube, and a blog post. I even shared some of the insights in an email. So you can actually use one recording, one bit of content, and snip it up and choose bits and pieces to be used across all of the different channels in all different ways. That's what this is all about, making use of what you've got. So first thing, if you have a video that you have tried to put out to the world and it hasn't done that well, first thing I want to say to you is less than 4% on average of your audience will actually see your content. So even if it didn't perform very well, you are absolutely free to reuse it. First thing I would do though is do a couple of checks just to make sure that the reason it wasn't underperforming wasn't just the algorithm had an off day or your audience was looking at something else, just wasn't seen. So go through and do a bit of an audit on your existing content. And if you haven't already added captions, add captions. Most people, not just hearing impaired, use captions and read the captions. Even if they are listening, they still read the captions as they watch. Add captions. There are a bunch of tools that can help you do this. Canva can now do it. CapCut, if you've used CapCut either on mobile or on the computer, can do it for you. That can automatically transcribe and add captions. I love Descript for captioning. It's got some really nice templates for captions in there, and the transcribing is eerily accurate, even with different accents and different voices throughout it. So I actually find that one really, really nice. And also, I know a lot of people, I don't use DaVinci a lot, but I know a lot of people use DaVinci, and DaVinci's free. There is a little bit more of a learning curve with DaVinci. If I'm doing something with that, I tend to send it off to my video editor because learning curve. If you can take a screen share or take a shot of this, that QR code will take you to a bit of a sheet that I'll keep updated now and then. That shows you the best file format, file size, dimensions, aspect ratios for the different platforms. So for Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, that kind of thing. So good one to keep in your bookmarks if you are doing videos regularly. Even I refer back to it now and then, just to make sure that I have the format right. Because if you've got the format wrong on your videos when you're pushing them out, they're not going to get pushed to as many people because the computer says no. Computer doesn't like it if you don't fit in with what it's expecting. You might also get things like errors on upload and stuff like that. And that just makes it frustrating. And quite honestly, once something gets too frustrating, what are the chances of us just going, no, can't be bothered, then not going to do it. So next is, if you did have a video that didn't perform amazingly, watch it with fresh eyes or get someone else to watch it with fresh eyes, and make sure that your thumbnail, your first 3 seconds, which is why I say here, try a different starting point, and your call to action, have a bit of a play around with those, because you've basically only got a couple of seconds to grab people's attention when you put video out there. So one thing that's actually becoming really, really, I'll say, popular at the moment, and we're looking at it as a bit of a trend coming into 2025, is starting a story midway. So that's where you might even be able to grab a reel that you've done before, even though it's already short form and you've done your captions, you've done your size, all of that's great. Start it a little bit in. So start at 20 seconds in at a little bit of a hook. So look for what you're saying, how you're telling that story, and start it partway through. It grabs attention immediately. That sort of starting late, starting in the middle of a story, it grabs attention because people go, hang on, what's she talking about? What was that? What's she talking about? And then they listen to the rest of the story. And then chances are, if they think they've just missed the front of it, even though they haven't because you've deliberately done it, they're going to go read the caption to find out the context a little bit more if they didn't manage to glean that from what you did actually post. So try a different starting point, try a midway starting point, update your thumbnail. That also makes it look like a brand new video, even though the video itself might be something you've used before. So make sure that your call to actions in there have a modern hook. If you're still using a list of, say, hooks that you got off some Instagram guru a year ago, they're not going to work so well now. So you need to keep an eye on what's actually working now. And like I say, that starting a story midpoint seems to be working really well right now because it gets that curiosity bit going. All right. And this is what I said before. Less than 4% of your followers see your content each time you post it. And that is going down across the platforms. Instagram still has the best, which is at around 4%. But that means that, one, you're not cheating by repurposing your content. Don't feel like, oh, this is the easy way out. And you're also not boring your followers, because think of it, if you've got 100 followers, 4 of those might have seen, not even clicked on, just seen the content the first time you posted it. That means that there are 96 people in your audience that did not even see it at all. It didn't even cross their feed. That's 96 more people. And think about it. What are the chances? I should have done the math on this. What are the chances of you getting the same 4% again and again and again if you do post the same content multiple times? The only people that are going to notice are the people that go right into your profile and do a stalk. And that's okay. One of my favorite people on TikTok and Instagram to follow, they post their stuff 5, 6, 7 times. They leave about 6 to 8 weeks between and they repost stuff. And I love that because if I'm looking for something in particular, I don't have to scroll all the way through their feed. Yes, there's new stuff coming through as well. But as a follower, if I'm going looking for a topic that they've covered or I'm wondering whether they've covered something in particular, I don't have to go back to, 30, 40 posts ago, because they do recycle their content because they know that the content they put out there is valuable. So if you've got a piece of content that you thought was really cool and it didn't get huge reach, because let's face it, 4%, none of us get huge reach on a single piece of content, post it again, because some of the other 96% of people that didn't see it might get value from that. All right, here's some of the nitty gritty. Take a screenshot if you will, but I will also be giving you a checklist at the end. This is a cool little sort of flowchart graphic, so feel free to take a screenshot if you prefer this style over your checklist style. Start with a long form recording. They're my favorites because you can actually get more than just one clip out of them. Each webinar or podcast or masterclass that I record, I normally get 6 or 7, sometimes even more clips out of it to use as reels. And that's your first step. Go looking through your transcript. I find editing by transcript to be so much easier than watching myself back a million times. Anybody else with me there? I don't particularly love my own voice. I don't particularly love watching myself back. I probably watch it back once to make sure I didn't do anything horribly embarrassing during the live call, but I don't want to watch it back 100 times looking for clips or looking for valuable bits out of it. So use the transcript. Once you've created the transcript in any of those tools I mentioned before, Descript, Canva will even do it for you. CapCut's an amazing one. And look for those little key points. Look for the bits of value and then have a quick watch of it and make sure that the snippet that you think is great in writing comes across well in video as well. And I'll give you a tip later if it doesn't. Then, so you've got, I'm just doing one here, but you've got a 30 to 40 second clip of awesome value. Crop it to vertical, caption it, post it as a reel. Done. And again, if you've got a long recording, you can probably get more than one out of it. Then Again, with your transcript, because you've got that all written down now, create 5 carousel graphics from key points. I'm sure throughout a webinar or a podcast, you can find 5 amazing things you said. Make them into a carousel. Make a quote post from something that you said, a direct quote. Sometimes when you're speaking rather than writing, you can actually come out with some really, really good quotes because it's flowing, it's natural. So you might find some really, really cool quotes that you yourself said, or if you've got a guest on a podcast or something that they said, that you can turn into quote cards. And quote cards go down quite well on Instagram, not as well on the other platforms, but they go down really well on Instagram. Your carousels you can do on LinkedIn as well. There is a way to do that. So you've got already a nice little content library out of one piece of content there. Then we're going to take that transcript and we're going to either rewrite or summarize it into a blog post. So correcting your grammar, making it maybe less conversational and a little bit more readable. Hey, if you have to, for your first draft, chuck it into ChatGPT and say, this is a transcript from a webinar that I ran. Help me turn this into a blog post. And then go through and make it sound more like you. Because let's face it, if you're copying and pasting straight out of ChatGPT, it's kind of obvious most of the time. It's possible, but can be a little bit tricky to make it not sound like the AI that it is. So use it as a starting point, or take the transcript, copy and paste it in and say, give me an outline to a blog post using this transcript. And then you fill in the blanks. So using less of your brain there, but still using all of that content that you already came up with, all of the gold that you already said, and turning it into a blog post. Are blogs dead? No, they're not. They're not as important for SEO as they used to be. You can't just blog and hope that your website ranks #1 anymore, but they are still good for establishing authority for people who prefer to read rather than listen. Sometimes I'm that person. I actually like to sit down and read a blog. Turn it into a Substack. If anybody doesn't know what that is, have a look. It's actually really cool. I'd sort of call it almost a blog platform cross a newsletter, newspaper almost online. And if you're into that kind of thing, pop it on there as well. And then turn it into an email. As I said before, what I did with the one that I pictured, share the main insights, just your main key points. So even just these key points, share the main insights into a newsletter email. So there you have it. You've got one webinar. You've turned it into anywhere between 1 and 6, maybe more reels. You've got at least one carousel post out of it. You've got a quote post, maybe more. Depends on how many little snippets of gold you said. You've got a blog post that's ready to go on your website as a guest blog, or like I say, put it up on something like Substack. And then you've got your insights that you can share in a newsletter, which also builds a little bit of almost FOMO for your next webinar, because people go, oh, hang on a second, that webinar that I didn't go to that she's now emailing me about, maybe I should have gone to that. It sounds like there were some really, really good points in there. There you go. So then a month later, when you say, I've got another webinar coming, they might be a bit more interested. Now, big, big, big tip. And I've got some of my clients doing this for me. And I've also got some clients that I do it for. But keep a list of your videos. So every time you record a podcast, webinar, or even a reel, or every time you record something, have some sort of consistent naming convention for it. And then just keep a spreadsheet or even just a Word doc, anything that's searchable, where you just quickly note down the name of the file and what topics you covered. So that then in a year's time, when you're sitting there going, oh, it's Small Business Month again, I wonder if I've already got some content on XYZ topic, so that, I can repurpose that rather than re-recording. I know I've done some, I know I did it. And then you can just do a search, hit your control find. If you're using a Mac, it's different, I know, and you've already got that all organized. You can go and go, oh yeah, that webinar there, that's the one I'm looking for. So always keep just a spreadsheet or a list, anything searchable where you've got the file name So you can search your whole computer for it, even if you've saved it into some weird obscure folder somewhere. And you've got what topics were covered in that recording. Makes life so much easier, and it makes life a lot easier if you do it to start with as soon as you record it. Just a bunch of keywords. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's just for you. It's just for searching, but it's going to make your life so much easier than trawling through your folders. Trust me, I do this, looking for something that I know I recorded on a certain topic once upon a time and can't find. So then I do have to redo it when I probably said it better the first time. Couple of tools. I've mentioned some of these, but I'll just go into a little bit more about what people who aren't necessarily doing this already, where you can look for certain features. Now down here, this little icon here is CapCut, if you don't know it already. So these two are from CapCut. CapCut on the computer anyway has this really cool long video to shorts section. So what that does is if I upload a podcast recording into there, it uses AI to read the transcript and actually pick a bunch of clips for you. Now, it's not got a lot of customizing in that. It doesn't sort of let you play around with what bits and sort of give it information to say, I only want clips about a certain topic, or I only want clips where I'm talking and not somebody else. But it can be really handy, especially if you're fairly new to splitting up videos, to even just give you an idea of what makes a good clip. So you can edit it a little bit afterwards. So you can add a different style of captions and things like that afterwards. But it is really handy. It takes a while though, compared to other ones that I've seen that do similar. You've kind of got to put the long video in there, tell it to make some clips, walk away and make a cover and come back. Rather than sit there and get frustrated at it going 1%, 2%. It's got a Windows timer on it. Let's just say it that way. Next, once you're in the editing part of CapCut, again, this one's CapCut. I've done 2 screenshots of that. You'll find your captions section up here. And that's where you can add automatic captions. It can do cool things like auto highlight your keywords. So it'll actually go through and decide, again, using AI, it'll go through and decide what it thinks are keywords or words that should be emphasized, and it will automatically highlight those. So the font style will change. So it might bold them, it might make it a little bit bigger depending on the style of captions that you've chosen. So that's where you'll find your captions up there. You'll also find, I don't think it's in this screenshot, but it's usually down here somewhere, you can actually look over the entire transcript. So if you want to have a look over the entire transcript yourself, that's where you would look for that in CapCut. That's CapCut on the computer. It's not as, it's not got as many features on the phone, but phone is really good for your quick stuff, as we know, if you've played with video at all before. Descript. I use Descript a lot. As I said before, it's actually really, really good at the transcribing bit. For some reason, it works really well with different accents and it's scarily accurate. And you can edit by transcript. You can do that in CapCut, but it's really slow. I don't really like it. I found it really fiddly. But Descript, editing by transcript, is a game changer for those of us that don't like to listen back to our voice a million times. So if you'll see just here where that mean today is crossed out, I actually selected that and chose to delete that out, and it smoothly and easily actually just takes that little snippet of video out. So that could be my ums and ahs, which it can automatically detect as well, or it could be, what's up here, shorten word gaps or remove filler words, which are your ums and ahs, but also your repeats. I don't know how many times if I get stuck, I don't do a lot of umming and ahhing anymore, but what I do is repeat the first part of a sentence a couple of times, and I have to edit that out because on a recording, you want it to look a little bit more professional. Plus, if you've only got 60 seconds or 30 seconds to get your point across, you really want to get rid of a lot of the dead wood there. So really nice there. You can also edit your spelling and things like that if it has made some spelling errors, or because it does use American spelling, you might want to change things over to Australian spelling, and then that's what it uses for the captioning as well. So it's got some really nice caption templates in there too, which are down here over the side. And then if you're doing, this isn't so much a graphics video as it is a video. But if you are turning things into carousels or quote posts or anything like that, Canva's your go-to. Set up your brand templates, set up your logos and your colors to make it as easy as possible, and then just grab your bits out of your transcript in wherever you've played with it and just pop them in, draw them up, put them over an image if you want to, straight into your social media platforms. I'm making it all sound really, really easy, and these programs do take a little bit to get used to, not Canva so much. Most people are using Canva now and have a fairly good handle on it, especially if you do your own marketing or you do marketing for another business. But these guys can take, Descript and CapCut can take a little bit of a learning curve, so just have a play. Honestly, just have a play. CapCut can make your computer run a little bit slow sometimes, so I do say, close everything else down if you are using it. My computer's fine with it, but I've got a gaming PC. Descript, again, it can be a little bit slow. Sometimes it can be a touch buggy, but for the most part, they fix the bugs really, really quickly. And I find it really helpful. The fact that it does do that transcribing so well really does help me. Now, it does have a feature almost like the Canva one here of long video to shorts. It does have a feature down here called create clips. This one, have a play with that one because you can actually start to give it some ideas. So you can say, I want you to find in this Anastasia talking, because you've already named your speakers when you uploaded it, Anastasia talking about, whatever topic it might be. It might be batching content. So it'll go through and see if it can find any clips that are just me talking about batching content, and it'll put that together for me to then further edit. So that is quite neat. There's a bunch of stuff you can do in there, but they're the real basics if you are just starting with this. Then, as I have today, if you've got a webinar or a podcast or anything that you'd like to use, but some of the visual isn't usable, so all of the words were great, the transcript's great, but if you're wanting to turn it into a reel, particularly with this, like if I was wanting to turn this into a reel, into a vertical format, I'd find this quite difficult with this one, because for a webinar, you are normally in a landscape format like we are today because we're presenting a screen. Now, I could, and I have before, just cropped it in, well, not just cropped it in, but just popped it into the middle and put a background on it, and there we go. Or if you've got some of it that's usable and some of it that's not, your B-roll or stock video comes to the rescue. And what I mean by that is you almost act as a voiceover if you need to. It is still your voice, it's still your words. You might be able to use some of the visuals. So if some of it is just you on screen, or some of it is, a little bit better set up to be that vertical format, you can use some of it, and then you can shift the visual to some B-roll or some stock video. And that can look a little bit like these do. All of these use a little bit of B-roll video at some point. B-roll or stock video comes to the rescue when there's a bit of the video that either doesn't translate well to a vertical format, or where you look horrendous, or might have walked away, stepped out of camera, whatever it might be. You can still use your audio. You can still use that gold that you came out with. Just pop a little bit of B-roll video over the top of it for however many seconds. It isn't great for a vertical format. And there you go. Just like we did there. And then if you are recording new stuff, try and keep repurposing in mind before you record it. Try and set yourself up in such a way that if you do want to repurpose it later, which you should with almost everything that you put out there, you are setting yourself up to be able to do that easily without having to go for B-roll. I mean, yes, with a webinar, you do need to sometimes, because you can't show the whole screen. It doesn't translate well, but keep yourself in the middle of frame, leave enough space around you so that if you were to crop it to portrait, it did still look okay. Because if you've got yourself right up in front of the camera and you want to crop it to that 9:16, then if you're way too close, it's probably not too flattering. Most people don't look super amazing up against the camera like this. No one wants to see your boogers or your pimples. That's what filters are for, but they don't work when you're that close. And sit back a little bit and just keep in mind that you need to stay in one sort of spot if you do want to turn it into a reel later. And if you don't want to stay in one spot, then use a tracking camera if you can get one, where it does sort of follow you around the room a little bit. If you're the type that likes to draw on a whiteboard and things like that, keep in mind every time you record that you might want to repurpose it and set yourself up for that. It makes your life so much easier. As we said before, it saves you time, it saves you money, and a whole lot of effort saying the same stuff over and over and over again when you probably only needed to say it once and then just repurpose it. Now, that's kind of the end of the educational part. I did want to keep this to around sort of 30-40 minutes because I know it is the end of the year and I know that everybody's probably a little bit brain dead by now. If anyone does have any questions, pop it in the chat. I know I've only got a couple of people live today, but I am more than happy to answer questions. And then, as with every webinar, in comes the guess what's coming. If you want to learn more, if you want to know more about coming up with content ideas, you want to learn more about how to set up your camera and your lighting and your mic and how to then edit, how to use those programs properly, how to actually get right into them and test things, then I do have a membership/course coming up. Pre-sale is open now for it. It opens in January, mid-January, so that we can start to get, a little bit of a head start on the year before everything gets too crazy. And it gives you a bunch of information about how to do this stuff for yourself. So more than I can do in a, half hour, 40-minute webinar. This is really, it's a membership. So there'll be live sessions. There'll be a group where you can ask questions, ask for feedback, have a look at things, brainstorm ideas, heaps of good stuff. Here's what's actually in it. So the course part of it is, all around building your foundation with video, working out what your style is with video, something you're comfortable with, and the basics of storytelling and how to tell a story on video so that people listen a little bit, we hope. The next one is more around if you do want to do script writing and you do want to give yourself more prompts rather than just sort of ad-libbing it like I tend to do. The best way to film, again, setting yourself up, getting the right settings in the software that you use, editing like a pro without having to be one. If we need one, I've got one, but I do a lot of my own editing, even though I am far from an actual video editing pro. And then practicing your delivery, and we'll be working through that with you as well as we go. Building a content calendar, I'll give you some templates there for that as well. Repurposing, which is kind of what we've done a tidbit on here. Staying motivated to actually keep doing this stuff, because we all know we love to start new things and finish them before we finish them, if that makes sense. And then how to read your analytics, engage with your audience, and actually, scale this and make it bigger and better and seem like you're everywhere, even though you're probably actually not. A lot of people say to me, I see you all over socials all the time. And while, yes, I do spend a fair bit of time on socials, hey, it's my job, I'm not there as often as people think I am, because I push out a lot of content, but I also repurpose a lot of content, just like I've shown you here. You get a video checklist, content ideas library that we work on with you to come up with ideas for your particular business, and then some platform-specific guides, again, around what formats they like, what works, what doesn't, what types of content are working better at different times on different platforms. So there'll be a bunch of stuff about that too. Check your inboxes later today. There's that content repurposing checklist I mentioned at the very beginning of this. You'll get that in your inbox later this afternoon. And if you are interested in this Real Results membership and actually learning a lot of this stuff, the discount just for coming along today or watching the replay until the end of the month is a huge 25% off. So usually it's $750 if you're paying up front. That comes down to around $560. If you choose to pay monthly, it's normally $79, comes down to $59. So some really, really decent discounts there. And I will say, when I put that discount together and saw the numbers, I kind of went a little bit. So if you are keen, take me up on it before the end of the month. And before I probably don't do that much of a hefty discount on it again. But if anybody has any questions, pop them in the chat. And if anybody's watching the replay and you have any questions, please feel free to email me, message me, anything. And I'm more than happy to help. I do also have a free group that is still fairly small. I haven't pushed it too much yet, on Facebook, just called No Grey Suits the group. So feel free to join that to get, some more tips and tricks. I also do something I love, which is, if you tell me what industry you're in, I'll come on and give you a bunch of ideas for different content or reels. It's just a little fun thing I like doing. So the other day I did a kinesiologist. I learned how to say that too. And I gave her a whole bunch of video or content ideas for her business. And that's one of the things I love doing. One of my little superpowers that I really enjoy. So jump into the group if you want that. Can reach back out to me anytime as well if you have any specific questions. I'm always happy to help. Okay, so we actually wrapped up just as I thought we would, between 30 and 40 minutes. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year. If I don't speak to you before then, enjoy, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you in the new year. Take care.